Alright everyone, welcome back to the channel for another Bitcoin update. So, in the immediate short term, things are starting to look up for Bitcoin. In the lower time frames, we've got a bit of volume coming in. We are having our oscillators and momentum indicators shoot to the upside. And also, we're blasting past some very important areas of resistance on the volume profiles for the VPVR. However, we're forming everything from hidden bearish divergence. We're still in our bearish pennant. The RSI, MFI are starting to get overextended, and also there's not a lot of volume coming in over on the daily time frame. There's a lot of worrying things that we are forming right now, so let's talk about the potentiality of Bitcoin having a further pump before the dump. Now, we did briefly talk about this in my previous video. Bitcoin bottom is in. We talked about the likelihood of, I talked about specifically this being a failed breakout to the downside. And as I always say on my channel, a failed move equals a fast move in the opposite direction. So it's very, very likely that we push to the upside in a couple of these patterns before getting thwarted back down. I'm also going to mention, because, there's a lot of important things going on with the FOMC meeting and the GDP report all in the next 12 days. So let's start off on our first chart. Now, I wouldn't be surprised if we do actually blast to the upside of this, but you are going to start seeing a lot of resistance come in at around about 21,600. This is where the top of this bearish pennant comes into play. And you can also see this is the descending trend line that we've got. That we've mainly been focusing on the hidden bearish divergence. Now, we actually have double hidden bearish divergence that has played out. So, this previous fractal, I'm not going to jump through it again because we've talked about this many, many times, but we had this hidden bearish divergence play out, massive move to the downside. We did manage to run up to this twice, and so far, this could be the second time that we do run up to this trend line. So, potentially don't be too surprised if we do move up to 21.5. This would allow the RSI to get a little bit more overextended before we do head back down to the downside. And you could even see, we could move up to prices as high as 23,300 and still be in a downtrend and subsequently watch this hidden bearish divergence play out. So let's talk about a few other things that we do need to focus on now. This is one of the most bullish indicators in the short term for Bitcoin. This is the fact that we are currently coming up to some of these very, very important levels. Over on the VPVR, we've already taken out the most important level, which was coming in at 20,700. And the next most important level is literally where we're sitting at right now, around about 21,100. If we do manage to see a big move above 21,100, you can see over on the VPVR, there's not a lot of volume traded above us, and subsequently we'd find it relatively easy to move up to the top of some of these patterns. This can potentially be a bear flag, but if you do drag it out, let's get rid of the VPVR, you can also see this could play out as something like a rising wedge. Now, if you know how rising wedges work, rising wedges typically appear after a break to the downside. You normally see a rising wedge play out, and then, as it gets tighter and tighter and tighter, this is a bearish signal. You normally break to the downside about 60 to 70% of the time over on rising wedges, and, potentially this could just be a bear flag if it only lasts for like one more touch point. If we come up to here, touch this and start to head to the downside, you could very much see this could just be a textbook bear flag, but I wouldn't be surprised if this does play out a little bit longer and we do get a little bit more continuation to the upside, hence the name of the video, Pump Before the Dump. It is also interesting to note, let's say hypothetically we bounce up to the top here, we bounce up to, 23,200, which would still mean that this hidden bearish divergence would still be in play, and subsequently this could just get stronger and stronger with every lower high that we've got over on the divergence. Now, I also find it likely we could move to the upside. Once again, I did say it is possible for us to get continuation in yesterday's video or the day before. Bitcoin bottom is in. We talked about, once again, the fact that we did have a failed move below this, and as I always say on my channel, a failed move equals a fast move in the opposite direction. This is why we're seeing a strong pump in Bitcoin right now. I do not yet think the bottom is in for Bitcoin, and I don't think we can be certain that the bottom will be in for Bitcoin until we have our next FOMC meeting and our next GDP meeting, which are with the FOMC meeting. This is going to be out in the next 11 days, and with our GDP meeting, we've got this in 12 days. This is coming into play on July the 28th. So, if GDP is negative in 12 days, and also if the Fed does continuingly increase the interest rates in the next 11 days, we could definitely see another huge flush out to the downside for the market. So what's interesting with this is all going to be playing out in the next 12 days. So we could see something like this for Bitcoin, where we could potentially even try and do something like this and just elongate this rising wedge, and then in the next 12 days, let's say the Fed increases the interest rates and we get a confirmed negative GDP report. This would allow for Bitcoin to massively capitulate with this bearish news, which is why I think we shouldn't jump to any guns at this moment in time and say it's 100% likely the bottom's going to be in. I am not dismissing the fact that this could potentially be the bottom. However, I'd much rather buy and say, okay, I'm comfortable calling this being a bottom after the FOMC meeting comes into play. I think a lot of people neglect how much of an impact this will have on the markets. We can literally rally for the next 12 days, and then if we get negative GDP and we get positive interest rates, this could absolutely capitulate all of the markets for one last final flush to the downside. So I'm still sticking on my guns with this. I think a move like this is very likely. I think it's more likely that interest rates are going to be up. I find it more likely GDP is going to be negative. So I find a move potentially as high as, 23, 24,000. This could even diminish. This could even take out the hidden bearish divergence. But then all things point to a breakdown if the FOMC is positive, meaning if we've got positive interest rates, and then if we've got negative GDP, this could absolutely cascade the market. So this is kind of what I'm looking for at this moment in time. Let's say, once again, we have a perfect storm of bearish news in the next 11 to 12 days. Then I think this is going to happen. I think we have our final flush out to the downside, and then I think the bottom is in. This is personally what I expect to play out over on Bitcoin. Now, I would not stick with this opinion if the interest rates are lowered and if we do have positive GDP. I want to be malleable when new information comes in. So once again, I'd much rather switch my tone and say, okay, I now think the bottom is in after the Fed backpedal. I've been saying this on my channel for months. It's been well documented. I've been bearish on Bitcoin and altcoins for months and months now. At the prices we are right now, this is still, miles and miles away from when I've been telling you the bottom is not in. So I would much rather flip bullish as the Fed backpedals. I cannot be bullish on Bitcoin and any of the stock market until the Fed backpedals. So I just want to reiterate that everything basically lies on what's going on in the next 12 days. But within the next 12 days, we're seeing a huge run to the upside. I mean, if we just look at the volume in the lower time frames, volume is starting to step up in the past 12 hours, which is very nice. But like I said, there's a lot of worrying things going on with the markets right now. So, just looking at the oscillators alone, look at the money flow indicator. The last time the money flow indicator was this overextended, the last time this amount of retail money flew into the market, we were literally up here at 92, up at 48,500. Like, typically, when the money flow indicator is this overextended, you're at least going to have a huge throwback to the downside. So either way, let's say the bear market bottom is already in. I find it very likely that no matter what, even if the bottom is in, let's say this scenario doesn't come, this is what I see coming into fruition, I still think because the money flow indicator is so overextended, a move like this and then a move back down, creating a higher low for Bitcoin. If we never come back to this level, we have a higher low, a lot of volume comes in round about 18k and it starts to push back up to the upside, I'd be calling for a bottom to be in place round about here. But once again, this is not really what I think is going to be coming on. This is what I think is going to be playing out on the market. So once again, everything from hidden bearish divergence, double hidden bearish divergence is playing out. This hidden bear is absolutely beautiful right now. We're still in this bearish pennant. However, I find it very likely that in the immediate short term, we're probably going to break out of this now, just because of the fact that we've completely broken past a lot of the very important areas of resistance over on the VPVR. And I could take this up level for level, but the fact of the matter is, this was the most important cluster. And, you know, right now we are pushing above 21,100. So I find it likely we're going to get continuation. We're at least going to get continuation in the immediate short term. There's a great amount of volume coming in on the lower time frames. But once again, when in doubt, zoom out. On the daily, we're getting diminished volume. This is a terrible sign to witness, as the money flow indicator is becoming super overextended. You know, as we're this overbought right now, the money flow being this overbought and volume starting to head down because we don't have much strength is quite worrying. On the 4-hourly time frame, we are starting to get momentum back, which is nice. This will definitely be calling for a further move back to the upside. As I've always been saying, I don't like to long in a bear market, just like I don't like to short in a bull market. So I would be predominantly sitting on the sidelines for this. But once again, I find it very likely Bitcoin's going to take one last leg back up before we head down. If we look at the daily time frame for the Heiken Archies as well, we have inevitably started to switch green as we are pushing to the upside, pushing above these important VPVR levels. And once again, I find it more like I find it much more safe to go with the trend. So in the immediate short term, I think we are going to get continuation. However, you know, when in doubt, zoom out. What's going on the weekly Heiken Archies? The uptrend hasn't even started. So once again, tons of bearish volume coming in. Bears are completely in control. As far as you can tell, when you do zoom out to the higher time frames, we are really just getting a bounce off this huge VPVR level. And once again, higher time frames, nothing has changed. So in the next 12 days, we're going to find out, is the Fed backpedaling? If the Fed backpedals like this, I will immediately switch bullish. In the next 11 to 12 days, we're going to find out everything we need to know with the FOMC, with the GDP report. If the Fed starts to backpedal, I will become bullish. I do not think the Fed is going to backpedal. I think the Fed is going to increase the interest rates by 100 basis points, and subsequently, I think the markets could definitely get slapped to the downside. I'd love to admit I was wrong. If the Fed backpedals, I will once again immediately flip bullish. Just like that, I will jump back into the market. I will buy the altcoins that I have sold months and months and months ago for much cheaper prices. I will ape into Bitcoin as soon as the Fed backpedals. I just don't see it happening. And I would also like to emphasize what people are getting out of bed for right now. You know, when was the last time that we saw these prices? 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6 days ago. Not even a week ago, we were at higher prices. We were making lower highs a week ago. You know, a month ago, we were making lower highs over here. And right now, we're still down here. So the trend is your friend until the end. Yes, in the immediate short term, all signs are pointing for a pump before the dump. But I would not also discount the fact that this could have already been the pump and we're getting ready for the dump. So in my opinion, the likelihood is in the immediate short term, we can get continuation. We are seeing a tiny bit of volume coming in, but really within the next week to 7 to 11 days, when we've got the FOMC meetings coming in, I do think the markets are going to get absolutely slaughtered. Once again, if the Fed backpedals, so will I. I just don't see them backpedaling. So that's really all I've got in the immediate short term for Bitcoin. I will be doing some further updates later. I have been busy. My friend has come back from Saudi. So if you do want to keep up with what I'm doing when I'm away from these charts, be sure to follow me over on Twitter and over on Discord, and you can see what I'm up to. But yeah, that's all I've got for you today. Once again, I think it's very, very likely that we've already either seen the pump before the dump, or if a little bit more volume comes in, if we are able to get a little bit more momentum coming into these markets, I do find it likely we could potentially form something like this rising wedge. Bear in mind, we can have a pump, a dump, and a further pump all within the next 12 days or so, and this would beautifully line up with when we've got our FOMC and GDP report. So all in all, until the next 12 days play out, until the CME or until the FOMC meeting comes, until the GDP report comes, I will be sitting on the sidelines. I really do think we are gearing up for that last pump before a huge dump back down to lower levels. And once again, until the Fed stops increasing the interest rates, until they backpedal, I cannot be bullish on these markets. So we'll find out everything we need to know in the next 12 days. That's all I've got for you today, my friends. And as always, cowboy out. Peace.